Hello and welcome to another episode of Myos MD's Power Panel. So before we get started, I wanted to mention that today's Power Panel is brought to you by Myos MD, a cutting-edge nutritional supplement designed to combat muscle loss and support healthier aging. Powered by the ingredient fortitropin, which is a bioactive compound clinically shown to enhance muscle growth and reduce anabolic resistance, Myos MD is changing the way we think about muscle health. If you'd like to learn more, please visit myosmd, myosmd.com to learn more. All right, so into today's episode, we have an amazing guest, Dr. Dana Cohen. You've had an incredible career in integrative medicine and nutrition. Could you share a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to focus a lot of your patient care on hydration and personalized nutrition?
So I was very lucky to get a job literally right out of residency with Dr. Atkins. So he started me on this journey. I am so forever grateful because I was kind of miserable in internal medicine, and at that point couldn't turn back and had to go out and start working. And I just got lucky and found this job, and it was a fluke because it said world-renowned wellness center in New York City. I thought it was a spa. And so I applied for it, and then I found out it was for Dr. Atkins, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm actually on the Atkins diet right now, never felt better. And so that's how it all started. And the truth is, I saw miracles every single day just by changing somebody's diet, by taking sugar out of their diet. Like, you see miracles. And I was blown away, and I think what a lot of people don't realize too is that the Atkins Center was about 5% weight loss, 95% what at the time called complementary medicine. So we would see people from all over the world with, illnesses that I never even saw in residency. And he would change their lives, so forever grateful. And that was in 1998, a long time ago. And so I've just sort of gone from there and never looked back. Yeah, so I'm lucky.
Amazing. And besides, your clinical practice, you also are a published author. So I'd love to talk about your first book called Quench, which focused on hydration and its critical role in health. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions people may have about hydration, and how can healthcare providers address these, misconceptions with patients?
Well, I think the biggest, I think a big misconception is that, you're not dehydrated unless you're like overtly dehydrated, like thirsty, or, you're throwing up and having horrible diarrhea. So I think overt dehydration is not the kind of hydration that I'm talking about. I'm talking about this day in, day out, low grade, subclinical dehydration that we all experience and that we need to stay on top of. It's the one thing in my practice that I am a stickler on, so staying on top. If you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated, so we want to you're overtly dehydrated. So we want to sort of stave that off. I also think.
Oh no, I think we might have lost you. Oh no. Sorry for anyone tuning in live. I think that we are having some technical issues. Just a moment. Oh, okay. Amazing.
A computer just died. I told you I'm having issues. So sorry about that.
No worries at all. Please continue.
Okay. So I was saying that, what were we talking about? We were talking about.
You're a stickler on hydration in your practice. That's the last
Yes.
one.
Yes. So, misconceptions. The other thing I was going to get on was about, 8 glasses of water a day is how we need to hydrate. Not necessarily. Some people need that. Some people need more. Some people need less. It's extremely personalized, and we don't have a good way of measuring this low grade dehydration. And then I think the third thing about hydration that I want to mention is uh, oh, food. Food is, we need to look at our food, right? So food is a means of hydrating, and we want to incorporate more hydrating foods into our diet, meaning get rid of or limiting ultra processed foods, more fruits, more vegetables, more plants, is really the way to do it. And then if we, my I just want to talk about two other quick things in the book. The first thing is, how do we know we're properly hydrated? So number one, we need to live in our bodies, right? So not be be cut off from the head down. We need to know what it feels like to feel properly hydrated, being able to move with ease, not constipated. But the biggest thing is looking at your urine output, I think, is the most important thing. So we're meant to pee every 2 or 3 hours while we're awake. And if you're not doing that, you're not properly hydrated.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I love the concept of eating your water and thinking about food as such an important source of hydration. Amazing.
Yeah.
So, and now I would love to talk about your newest book called Fuel Up. If you could tell us a little bit about this book, what inspired you to write the book, and how does it build upon some of the concepts that you just mentioned with hydration?
So it's the perfect sort of next step after Quench, right? So Quench is, it's the bottom line. It's a smoothie book. Quench is, it's how to, a great way to hydrate is by smoothies, lots of greens in a blender. So this just goes the next step, right? So up leveling your nutrition every way you can by using a blender. My co-author invented the NutriBullet, now has a new blender called the Beast, and so it's just it's we're the perfect sort of combination of it's incorporating a blending lifestyle, limiting ultra processed foods. You can't throw cake in your blender, it's almost impossible. You want to, so that's really the inspiration, the next step. My dream is to get this book in the hands of people who've never picked up a health book before. So anybody listening, if you have a family member that you can't convince or they don't know where to start, this is where you start. And yeah, so that was the impetus. And then there's some, science where there's science, but they're both very easily read, easily implemented books. Lots and lots of recipes in both of them. Quench is more smoothie related. Fuel Up has recipes on, condiments and meals, and not, you wouldn't have a whole meal blended, although you should have one meal like blended, like a breakfast blend or something like that. But and then unusual ways to use your blender, because I think something like 98% of all households have a blender. It's fun, it's easy. So that was how it came to be.
Yes, great. And so that leads perfectly into my next question. So I'm sure that when you're working with patients, you have a practice in Manhattan and New York City. So when you're working with patients, I'm sure you're bringing up concepts that come from both of these books, but would love to hear a little bit more about your approach to nutrition, especially as it pertains to integrative patient care, and also how you incorporate MyOSMD in your practice.
Okay. So, nutrition is very personalized. So first of all, let me just say off the bat, I have a nutritionist and an RD. It's one person. She's got both, which is unusual. So Layla is part of my practice. Every patient that sees me has a follow-up with Layla. So she really does all the implementing of this. And I think, nutrition. So first of all, it all starts with your history, right? I take a fairly thorough, as does she, nutritional history. I think that's always nutritional and hydration history. I always ask about, what are you drinking? Are you drinking enough water? Most people say know, believe it or not. Most people know they don't hydrate well enough. Some people say they do and they're not doing it right. Maybe most people don't do it right. And so nutrition, the approach is it just has to be talked about. There's some people that need more, and I do think that that's where like maybe health coaches need to get involved in this, where they're seeing people and coaching people on on a little bit need a little more than once a quarter visit with a nutritionist. There are things that we can do to maybe even improve that, but there's handouts, there's it's just always talked about. I think it's just important to constantly talk about. As far as MyosMD, I've started implementing it in my older patients more regularly. So this is not even anybody who's maybe even on a weight loss journey or anything, but in my older patients, I think just adding. So first of all, it's perfect because I recommend blends or smoothies to everybody, especially as a breakfast. So it's just another thing that you throw in the blender, right? It's easily implemented. It doesn't taste like anything, and the studies are really, really great about improving lean muscle mass. So in elderly people, it's just something I'm starting to blanketly prescribe to. But I do a lot of GLP-1 in my practice as well. And it's a tool. It's just a tool. GLP-1 is not a lifelong commitment, although they will tell you it is. And I'm starting to play around with even microdosing GLP-1s. Yeah, so uh, and it could be oral GLP-1, it could be even microdosing injections. There's lots of different ways. But I do have like a protocol of anybody on a GLP-1. I'm starting to implement that two things, let alone the diet, increasing protein, really keeping an eye on what you're eating. That's all Layla's job, to really making sure that they're getting the right nutrients. And that I will say, what I did see early on, because I've been doing them for a couple of years now, is that people on GLP-1s, because they're still losing weight no matter what, they're starting to eat more junk food. I was noticing that a lot, especially early on. Now, like, I'm really addressing that. Um, and once again, people need to know it's just a tool. And if they don't learn how to eat right and well, that they're never gonna get off of it, and it's not gonna be healthy in the long run. Aside from that, though, with the weight loss from anything, and let alone GLP-1s, most of the time the weight loss is going to involve fat loss and muscle loss, right? So my first thing is, there's two things that I have them do off the bat. So I have a supplement called Quench, which is basically a multivitamin, a powdered multivitamin, but it has 15 grams of protein in it, which is unusual. Yeah. So Quench as the base of your smoothie, MyosMD, and then whatever else you want to do as your breakfast blend. And that's sort of just a go, what's the word I'm looking for? Protocol of anybody on a GLP-1.
Great. And I would love to learn a little bit more about like an example. So you said the NutriQuench, MyosMD, then would you add, berries, greens, like what's your kind of dream morning smoothie or something you would recommend to a patient?
Yeah. So for me, like I'll throw whatever I have in the fridge in there. Always a base of greens, because you can and you won't taste it. It's just a great way to get in some fiber and greens. And then whatever, if you have, we're in the winter now, so I have a freezer full of frozen berries and stuff that I had left over from the summer. So whatever berry you want to throw in there, you could throw in lemon, you can throw in ginger. It just, you could throw in a half an apple. That's a real sort of baseline thing. And then in the book we have over 100 recipes for smoothies. I'm very basic, like the easier, the faster, the better. But there's tons of stuff you can do. I have a patient who throws he throws all his supplements in there too. Anything that I make sure, like I go through it with him. Yes, you can put that in your blender. No, that needs to be on an empty stomach. Blah blah blah. So some people throw all their supplements in there too on top of that. So it's just I do it ease and convenience, whatever I got and whatever I can throw in there.
And so as you're talking with, patients about implementing some of these very, what we would consider pretty simple interventions when it comes to nutrition or hydration, but what challenges do you find with patient compliance, and how do you help patients overcome these challenges or barriers?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a real hard one. I think that's maybe where coaching would fit in, and that's probably going to be my next step in my practice is hiring a coach that can, check in weekly and push people a little bit harder. There's all kinds of apps and, um, you know, all kinds of things that we can. That in the back of my mind that I have on top, just depending on what a patient's looking for, whether it's talk therapy or apps to help you track. Layla, once again, is the implementer of these things. So, but in the book, I do dip my toes into the psychology of creating habits a little bit. And there's a lot out there. It's hard. Every patient's not going to read every book I recommend to them. So in my book, we dip our toes into it. We talk about making small changes can have huge impact in your long-term health, and meeting people where they are. I think the biggest thing too is complete acceptance of where a patient is at. I think unconditional, love and acceptance of where they are. And then I always say to them, listen, I'm here to push you. I'm here to, push you. Layla's going to push you a little bit, because they'll get mad. They will get mad at me if I take away their dairy or something, and so it's just finding that in with them. I don't, it's hard. It's definitely hard, and patients have to take responsibility. People have to take personal responsibility, and me as their doctor, I can only help guide them in ways that I can help guide them in. And so it's a tough one, but I do think that we do a pretty good job um, of baby steps in the book that I think in the long term can just take that pressure off of people, of like, oh my God, I can't do all this. I just can't do all this, So giving them little things to start with can be super helpful in taking that pressure off their shoulders.
Yeah, and it's all about the small steps. Even when I, used to work in urgent care, it's like, patients are very overwhelmed by even the idea of starting to work out. It's like, I just say start with a walk around the block and then we can go from there. So it's all about the small steps that lead up to something greater. So yeah,
Yeah.
love that approach. And I also want to talk a little bit about chronic diseases. I know that, or chronic illnesses. I know that that's something that plagues a lot of Americans. So could you talk a little bit about your approach with personalized medicine as you tailor nutritional plans for patients dealing with chronic conditions?
Yeah. I mean, I think lab testing is, for me, super important. And a lot of my functional testing really looks at, underlying nutrients and seeing what they're missing and replacing those kind of things. It's hard though. It's hard for us as physicians because everything is so expensive, and my hands are tied in those kind of things. So you try to do your best with those kind of things. Always let patients know up front costs of the testing, what may or may not need to be repeated, that kind of thing. So I'm a huge fan in having data and lab work in these kind of things whenever possible, um, and then. It's extraordinarily personalized. That once again, it is just looking at chronic disease. It's all of these things that we just said. How are we going to get patients to move when they can't? How are we going to get them to eat better when all they want is pleasure from eating because everything else hurts so bad? So I think it's once again meeting people where they are with love and total acceptance, and then trying to peel away those layers. It's time, people want a quick fix. It doesn't exist, especially for chronic illness. It doesn't exist really. I will say the quickest fix I know of is changing your diet. For anybody, changing your diet, and the quickest, even quicker than that, is hydrating,
I
right?
was going to say,
Start with hydration. It takes one day to feel better when you're fully hydrated. Not even, when you do it right, you'll notice a difference that quickly when you're learning how to hydrate, when you're hydrating better. It's everything. It's the basis. I say this on every podcast, everything I do. Learning how to hydrate is the single most important thing you can do to treat and prevent chronic disease. Always start there. And a great way to start is having a green smoothie a day.
Yes. And with so many nutrition trends and fads that are out there, whether they pertain to weight loss or otherwise, like even fad diets, how do you guide patients to focus on evidence-based practices like improving their hydration practices and things like that, so that they can really improve their long-term health?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm going to be honest with in the days of, social media and Instagram and TikTok, it's hard. I hate trends. I hate fads. I never, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the gallon water challenge a day. Um, I think a lot of people are can get really hurt by that, overhydration. Not everybody is Tom Brady and has the physique of Tom Brady to be able to do that, so I don't like trends. And even, I'll be honest, even like peptides, and so it makes me unpopular. Like, that's why I'm not the most popular. I don't jump on them. I don't try to make the buck. I don't try to, so it's hard. It's, once again, it's super hard to convince patients like, hey, I saw this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, ah, there trends and fads are, yeah, it's difficult to get around is all I can say.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I also wanted to ask you, what advancements or, like things are you most excited about for the future of patient care, especially when it comes to, nutrition, hydration, or even integrative medicine overall?
So the bigger thing that's on my mind right now are ultra processed foods. There's a lot of interesting research going on, trying to limit those and why they're bad for us. I'm excited about hearing all that. The other, and this is not so much a trend anymore, is fasting. And I'm not talking about like intermittent fasting. I'm talking about like true water fasting and that kind of thing. These are things that have been around for centuries. And anybody who maybe has a religious practice understands it. I think,
Or in Ayurveda, yeah.
yeah, I think that's interesting. What else? I think those are two big things that come off on the top of my head for advancements in integrative medicine. More studies on supplements and single supplements. MyosMD, I think, is really interesting. We needed this. We really needed this product right now. I think it's a fantastic product to, in this day and age right now, because it's talking about protein and, muscle mass, that kind of thing.
And yeah, and I agree. In the age of the conscious consumer, where the consumer is maybe going on PubMed, maybe they're Googling, they're looking for this information, and they want to ensure what they're paying for when it comes to a supplement is actually going to work for them.
Yeah.
I just see so many more, people or patients interested in looking at, the efficacy and
Yeah.
understanding, like, is this actually the right fit for me? So I love to see that change too. All right, we're
Yeah.
coming to the end already, which was the quickest 30 minutes ever. And so would love to, hear if, like, the majority of the people that are listening to our recordings or our lives are healthcare providers who, see patients every day. And so what are your 3 practical takeaways for them? It could be about hydration, nutrition, anything that you think could be helpful.
Super practical. Start with a green smoothie a day for breakfast. Figure out either it's a protein powder or real protein, putting in there hemp seeds, that kind of things. There's lots of ways to do that. So a green smoothie a day is a great practice to get into every day. Start your day with a large glass of water with, maybe you could do a little lemon juice in there for added minerals, a little pinch of salt if you need, also real salt or added electrolytes, that kind of thing. Great practice to start your day with. And then I think, meal prep. How about meal prep? Learn how to cook. I think really important. We've lost the art of cooking. So even a few meals a week, think about it on Sunday and make a couple of meals for the week. I think meal prepping, we've lost that art of cooking. And I even do give some recipes in the new book, how to roast a chicken, how to grill a cauliflower steak or make a cauliflower steak if you're a vegetarian. So we need to cook a little bit more for ourselves.
And also thinking about meal prepping as something that can be simple. I mean, I love the idea of just roasting a bunch of vegetables, putting them in a blender, putting in some, really great spices, and then all of a sudden you have, a really nourishing, nutrient-dense soup that you can eat for multiple days in a row. So something that I do. So I think that when a lot of patients, when I used to talk to them about meal prep, they would be like, oh my gosh, how many ingredients and how long is it going to take me? It's like, it could be, a pan of roasted vegetables into a blender. It could be, as simple as just roasting a chicken. So it doesn't have to be as complicated as it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. We do give tips in Fuel Up about meal prep to make it easy. Everything is about time and convenience and money. There's money saving tips, and also not, limiting waste also, I think, is a big deal.
Yes, definitely. So if anyone is, listening to the live or the recording, and we'll be attending IHS in New York City, which is coming up in a few weeks in February 2025. Dr. Cohen will be doing a book signing at the Myos MD booth. And so that's how, people can follow along with what you're doing, but also where else can people learn more about you?
I think the best way is my website, drdanacohen.com.
All right. Incredible. So as we wrap up, we'd like to once again thank Dr. Dana Cohen and Myos MD for sponsoring today's Power Panel. Again, Myos MD is powered by the revolutionary proprietary ingredient Fortitropin and is trusted by healthcare providers nationwide to deliver real results backed by science. So if you'd like to learn more about Dr. Cohen, please go to her website. And if you'd like to learn more about Myos MD, please go to myosmd.com to learn more from experts like Dr. Cohen. We have a number of recordings from previous Power Panels already on the website and on our YouTube channel. So do not hesitate to reach out with any questions, or if you have a suggestion for an upcoming guest. All righty. Well, thank you so much. And until we see one another in about a month.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Bye-bye.
Bye.